So today we are talking about how do I stop being the helpful coworker? So being helpful in and of itself isn't actually a problem, right? Helping others to the detriment of your own success is where we want to dive in today, right? So the question isn't how do I stop being helpful? There's nothing wrong with being helpful, but how do I stop saying yes when I want to say no? And how do I stop prioritizing other people's needs to the detriment of advancement in my own career, right? And so if you are someone who finds themselves fixing everyone else's mess or taking on the bulk of the admin or operational or logistic sort of things, the non-promotable work, right? Or if you are the indispensable member of your team, but for some reason not the promotable one, this is the session for you today. So stay tuned. All right. As always, we are going to break down here's what's going on with your nervous system. Here's what may be going on with your socialization in whatever marginalized identity that you're living within. And then here's why it makes total sense that we feel that way. And then here's what we can do about it, right? Okay. So let's dive in. We're going to start with our nervous system. So it being helpful is a fawn response, Fawn, in the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response to danger, right? This shows up like people pleasing. If for an animal in the wild, that would be like playing dead, right? Or rolling over, you see dogs do this. They roll over and show their belly, like, I am not a threat. There's also a secondary response to danger. And so we may be being helpful to stay safe. And the reason that it feels safe to people please is that when we're thinking about this from an epigenetic level, from an evolutionary biology level, you need to stay part of the community. There was a point in human history where if you were kicked out of the tribe or the community, you were going to freeze to death, starve to death, or get eaten by a lion, right? And so what that shows up with us in modern times is that harmony feels like safety, approval feels like safety, being needed feels like safety, right? We're not going to have anyone upset with us, and therefore we get to stay part of the community, and then we won't die, right? Like if we're really like breaking it down. And so saying no can feel dangerous on a deep visceral level, right? There's like centuries of history within this. Even if you're just saying no to something as simple as like, no, I don't want to go to girls' brunch. I don't like girls' brunch, or I don't like brunch, or I don't like girl, like whatever it is, right? Like, but saying no and thinking you're going to disappoint someone, even with something as trivial as like whether you go to girls' brunch or not, right? And why does that feel like it's threatening our safety? The other part is that saying yes feels good. It feels really good to say yes. It releases dopamine and oxytocin. And so we also get our validation cookies. People appreciate us, right? They're like, you're great. I thank you so much, right? Like being helpful feels good because when we're helpful to ourselves, we don't give ourselves that validation. We're not like, good on you for taking care of yourself, right? So we don't get that dopamine and oxytocin. Um, and then, when people appreciate us, that feels good too. So, where does our socialization enter into this, right? So, being helpful, agreeable, and self-sacrificing are what we're conditioned to be, right? We want to be a good partner and a good parent and a good leader and a good friend and like all a good citizen, right? We want to be good on all the things and being selfish, right? Putting our own needs first, which we would classify as selfish, even though it's like makes sense, right? That feels awful. And so what we need to think about is when we're the helpful one in the workplace, early in our career, this gets rewarded, right? You're easy to work with, you're a team player, you're reliable, you're low maintenance. But what happens over time is that gets you execution work. It doesn't get you strategic work. And so mid-career, when boundaries start being seen as difficult and being decisive somehow becomes being inflexible, and ambition becomes being aggressive or needy. And this is all socialization. These words aren't used. I specifically picked ones that are gendered, right? Difficult, inflexible, aggressive, or needy, right? These aren't words that we often hear applied to men in the workplace. And so all of this is coming together, right? Our socialization and our nervous system. And so we have sort of our response is a predictable playlist of emotions, right? We've got anxiety or fear before we try the thing. We have guilt when we say no. We have exhaustion from trying to do all the things, which can lead then to resentment and then to self-loathing when you're like, I should have said no. Why do I always do this to myself, right? Like this is just a predictable playlist of emotions that we're going to have in response to the thing that makes total sense that we would have this nervous system response based on our socialization and conditioning. All right. So, what do we do when this happens? Well, of course, we volunteer before the silence gets awkward, right? Of course, we quietly fix other people's mistakes, right? Of course, we jump in and answer the Slack or feel like it's calling you from the other room if you're just trying to like have dinner with your friends or family, right? Of course, you don't voice your own needs because then you're going to be needy or selfish or not a team player, right? And of course, you don't prioritize your own needs because we don't get any validation cookies for that. It makes total sense when we break it down this way that, of course, we're going to do those things. And so, what happens though when we don't interrupt this, when we don't see that, like, oh, yeah, this is just what happens, right? We get valued for our execution work, we're praised, we're celebrated, we're recognized, but someone else is setting the strategy. And that starts feeling very limiting at some point in your career. Being helpful works great early in your career, but when you want to have more autonomy or authority or visibility, it starts working against you, right? All of those things that made you successful, all those things you probably get praised for right now on your team are actually what are holding you back. And so what happens is being low maintenance turns into not getting critical resources, right? I'll just fix it. I'll just paper over it. I'll just make it work, right? It's fine. I'll make it work. Being agreeable means that you don't push back hard enough or hold people accountable. And being a team player means that you pick up the bulk of the non-promotable work while Chad gets the shout out in the all hands. Right? If we can't see this pattern, if we can't see it and then interrupt it, this is what happens. And so you get to this point in your career and you're like, I just feel like I can't get any further and I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong. And so we try working harder, we try this, we try that. But really, it's about seeing this pattern and starting to have our own back a lot more. Um, so, what should we do about it? I've got a few tips for you. The first one, I always recommend these, but it particularly when we're talking about people pleasing, and statements are very powerful. I can be a team player and never take the notes in another meeting ever, ever again, right? I can be a dedicated employee and close my laptop at the end of the day or on Friday and not pick it back up until business hours the next day or the next week, right? Um, and so thinking about, I can be a supportive parent and yell at my kids every day. You want to use and statements to give you nuance, to let you be a human, because we're not people who just exist in these silos. Like, this is work me and this is home me. And like, of course, those things can coexist peacefully, right? It just doesn't work that way. So that's the first tip, and statements. The second is, um, The second one is let there be silence. So we often feel like it gets awkward if it's like, hey, who's going to do this? And then we find ourselves going, I will, because the silence feels so uncomfortable. Or we say, um, I don't think that's going to work for me. My team's not going to be able to do that. Here's what I think we should do instead, and let there be silence. Okay, so what do we do during the silence, right? So you can count. You can just count in your head and be prepared to count as high as it needs to go. Nothing needs to be said. You're not going to die from silence, even if your nervous system does not get that message, right? So just count. Also, or try to stay present in your body. So while you're waiting for a response, you can just think about this is how my body feels against the chair. This is how my hands feel on the desk. This is how my feet feel in my shoes or my slippers or my socks, whatever's going on. But just focus on staying present in your body because our brain will start running into the future. And as soon as we start running into the future, we feel anxiety and we don't like the anxiety, and then we speak. And we just need to let it sit. We need to let people feel uncomfortable and then respond. Or you can do something funny, sing a song in your head, a short song, a kid's nursery rhyme or something. Just give yourself something else to do during that time that will help you stay present in your body so that you don't start running ahead and then just want to fix the awkward silence. All right. The next tip, and just pick and choose what you want, leave the rest. These are just ideas I have for you, and hopefully one of them will really resonate for you. So stay with curiosity. When there's that awkward silence and you need a bit of time to think, or someone's asked you to do something and you're like, I definitely don't want to do that, but I don't know what to do other than say yes to make this uncomfortableness stop. And so stick with curiosity. You can be about like, say more about that. Like that will buy you so much time. Even if it doesn't totally make sense in context, they'll be like, okay, let me say more about that, right? Or you can ask with genuine curiosity, what do you mean by it has to be done by this date? What needs to be done by this date? Or you can repeat back what you've heard. It sounds like you're saying this. Do I have that correct? You're not saying yes, but you're able to speak and push back. Or something as simple as like, let me see if I have this right and like go through all of it, right? Is that what you meant? So ultimately, you don't have to not be helpful. Like that, it's very hard to like sort of fight against that. You just have to decide what kind of helpful you want to be. And if you also, in addition to being helpful to other people, want to be helpful to yourself, right? Because what's happening right now is you're taking things on to the detriment of yourself. And so we're just adding one more person, the most important person, to the list of people that you want to help.